Hey guys, and welcome to LBB 91 coaching channel. Today we're talking about boundaries and attachment styles. I wanted to say this first and foremost. I don't know about you, but have you ever been in a place where you thought about telling your particular boundaries? Maybe saying no, maybe saying you don't want to do this. But when you did, you felt selfish. You felt muted. You felt like you couldn't actually say what you really wanted to say. While others were taught that saying what they need and what they want was okay, some of us have been taught that saying what you need and what you want isn't allowed. And so today we're going to talk about the struggles of setting boundaries according to your attachment style. So if you don't know your attachment style, I will give you a little bit of a background, let you understand what attachment styles is. Hopefully you can identify with what attachment styles is as well, and then begin to identify with which particular boundaries you're struggling to actually put together. This is going to be a two-part series because next week we're going to talk about the actual boundaries, the 6 boundaries that are included, and match that according to attachment styles. So before we go anywhere, please do a massive favor. You want to like it, share, subscribe, and click on that bell button. I want to help you guys today to be able to set boundaries, but according to your attachment style. So if you know yours, fantastic. If you don't, stick around. We're going to help break it down for you and hopefully bring some healing as well along this journey. We're going to be here for the next 45 to an hour. So, we're going to have some fun, but we're also going to help you guys grow and mature in this area of knowledge and understanding as well. Well, let's get into this. First and foremost, I want to be able to break it down to what actually boundaries is, because in reality, many of us talk about this word boundaries, but maybe not understand what boundaries actually is. And so boundaries are the limits and the guidelines you set to protect your emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, sexual, financial well-being. Okay. It is the beginning of where you start and where you actually end. And so it's about you being able to say what is okay for you, what is not. It's about you saying what makes you feel safe, respected, and valued. And this is what's really key. It's about being able to understand what makes you feel safe, not someone else. What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel respected? What makes you feel valued? What are your wants and what are your needs? Where can you say no and where are you going to say yes? Do you have thick boundaries? Do you have loose boundaries? We're going to break it down for you in a few minutes. The whole point of this is we don't want to build walls and we don't want to build towers. What we want to build is essentially fences, or rather, should I say, gateways, because we want to be able to have a free flowing in and outgoing aspect when it comes to our boundaries. So many of us have built up very high walls because that's what we've been taught. We've been taught, don't let anybody in. And some of us have been taught to let everybody in. And then it gets to a place where we're overwhelmed, or we feel like we've shut out the whole entire world and we can't connect. So we need to be able to find a balance. And that balance is a gate. And that gate is about allowing people in and allow people out. Okay. All right. So understanding that you need to understand what is it that you're requiring in order to feel safe, respected, and valued. You are allowed to have those particular things. Again, the 6 areas of boundaries are emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, financial. Even, in fact, there's a couple more. There's now digital. Okay, so a lot of us actually break digital boundaries. I'm going to do a whole live on that because that's a special one. In our day and age, digital boundaries is a major thing when it comes, especially to relationships, where people are actually flouting a lot of the boundaries in their relationship. They will say, I can't give my number out, but then give out their social media. Or they'll say, listen, you can't call me past 9 o'clock, but you can message them on social media at 1 a.m. This is digital boundaries. And actually, a lot of people break their digital boundaries because they don't consider an actual boundary. So we'll break that down for another day. That's not for today. That's for another live in the next week coming as well. But this week, to particular today, we're talking about attachment styles and linking that specifically to your boundaries. Okay, healthy boundaries are allowing you to say, no, this is not for me. Maybe saying, I need time to think about it. It's for you to say, I don't feel comfortable with that. This doesn't work for me. I'm available from this time to this time. This is what I need to feel safe. This is boundaries, healthy boundaries, where you're able to dictate and say, hey, this is not for me. Or, I would be able to, I can be able to negotiate where I can say, I can't help you today, but I can help you tomorrow. It's about you being able to feel comfortable, safe, and what? Respected. So safe, respected, and valued. Okay. All right. So a lot of us need to develop those good sets of boundaries. Now, let's talk a little bit about attachment styles. And when I talk about attachment styles, I've got to bring my favorite friend to the table, because whenever we break down attachment styles, I don't want to do it alone. You know what I mean? I want to do it with a friend of mine. Okay. So I'm going to bring my person up to the stage and help me go through this particular next hour or so. My fabulous friend called the Power Plow. The Power Plow? The PowerPoint slide. Okay. The PowerPoint slide. Okay. Don't play with me. All right. We got attachment theory and how the 4 attachment styles deal with boundaries. Hold on. Because we need to stay what? Hydrated out here. You're going to lose you can't play with it a game around here. You know what I'm saying to you? You got to stay hydrated. All right, cool. So let's break this down. Attachments with boundaries, and I'm going to break down what attachment styles actually is really, really quickly, and then we'll break into this. First and foremost, attachments is simply a psychological term that is for the explanation of emotional bonds between people, or as emotional bonds in relationships between people, right? So how you relate and how you actually bond with other people is dependent upon your attachment style. There are 4. Okay, but originally there was 3, and this was done by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth. Okay, and this was done by a British psychologist who discovered this as an experiment when it comes to young children and their caregivers. And what he was testing was what we call separation anxiety. And in that space, what he noticed was young kids and how they would react to the caregiver leaving the room and then coming right back in. So attachment theory in this instance is how do they deal with separation anxiety? Because every single attachment style is actually dealing with anxiety. Dismissive avoidance, how do they deal with anxiety? Fearful avoidance, how do they deal with anxiety? Anxious people, how do they deal with anxiety? Okay, we are all dealing with anxiety. Secure, how do they deal with anxiety? Right? And so this is understanding the separation anxiety is what he was measuring. And then what he derived from that was 4 different styles of attachment. Okay, secure, anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, and then fearful avoidant, which is called dismissive, so it's called disorganized or dysfunctional. And this came a little bit later on through Mary Ainsworth. So secure people, really, really quickly, grow up in households where they're cared for, loved, appreciated. They are allowed to have autonomy and freedom. But at the same time, they're given boundaries, and they're giving a voice to express themselves, to share their feelings. It's a safe environment if you grew up in that household. Your parents cared about you, they loved you, they provided shelter, but as well as the emotional aspect. Okay. All right. And then we have particular households where there was people grew up in dismissive households where the parents were dismissive. That's simply it. Their parents were emotionally neglective of your actual needs. An example would be you go to your parents and you tell them a story about when you grew up in school or what you did in school, and your parents would just dismiss you in that immediate moment. They didn't care for your emotional needs, right? You might have had food in your stomach, you might have had clothes on your back, a roof over your head, but when it came to the emotional connections between you and your parents, you never had it. And so actually what you learned, what happens is you end up growing to be hyper independent and doing things alone because you like to have your own, I guess, how would you say this? Have your own space, right? And then you got other children who grew up in an anxious home. The anxious home is where the parents were inconsistent with their love, right? So they could be actually decent parents, but maybe they weren't around as often. Maybe they were inconsistent in their caregiving and their love. Very different from from dismissive avoidant, because the dismissive avoidant was dismissed. The anxious person isn't necessarily dismissed. They're just not getting a consistent amount of care from the caregiver. Okay, so the parents could be there, but maybe they are distant. Maybe the parents are give you the child money, but then they will have to work long hours, and so the child was cared for, and occasionally their emotional needs was taken care of, but it wasn't consistent, and so they actually end up being anxious individuals. And then we have to talk about fearful avoidance. Fearful avoidance grew up in households where there is chaos. Okay, the parents are both fearful and comforters. So maybe one of the parents was very angry, and the other parent was a loving parent. So you can have maybe an abusive dad, or maybe an abusive mom, where the mom might have been a drunkard or alcoholic, or the dad could have been physically abusive, or they're just being very generally angry individual. So the parent can be a very angry individual, and the rest of the household has to manage and tiptoe on eggshells around that particular parent. So the child learns that it's not a safe environment. And so because of this, hot and cold of that caregiver, where there is maybe love from the caregiver, but there is also abuse, or there is anger from that caregiver. What will happen is a child learns there is unpredictability in their household. And so, if there's unpredictability, there is no predictable response I can give to the caregiver. I learn how to fawn and to people please. I become something to all people in order not to feel threatened. And so they grow up in households where they're full of fear. And so they grow up with what we call hot and cold tendencies, wanting love, but afraid of it. Okay. And so those are the four attachment styles. Now, we wanted to break this down in a space where we can bring this to boundaries, because I really think this is important. The way that these individual attachment styles relate is very different when it comes to boundaries. Okay. Each individual each individual attachment style deals with boundaries in very unique ways. And so we're going to break it down for you. If you can identify, if it makes sense for you, make sure you're taking a pen and paper out, make notes if you need to as well, because this is going to be very helpful for you as well. So let's talk about boundaries and attachments for you guys as well. Okay. All right, cool. Let's go to our first one. Again, we're going to go to our first slide, and here's my first slide. I like to do slides, baby. Okay, so what I did is I broke down the slide into an easy component where we can have a table. Okay, so as you can see, secure people, they're very good at healthy limits, direct communication. Anxious people are emotionally available. I like to question that. I don't think they are. I know I put that in there, but I'm going to explain what that really means. The avoidant people are independent and are okay with saying no. Okay, fearful avoidance are good at the intuition, honesty, and desire. Okay, here's where they struggle. Secure people assuming others can do the same. That's really the struggle for them. They just believe that everybody does what they can do, and they don't realize we weren't born in the same household, and we do not have the same skills. We don't have the same abilities that you have. Okay. The anxious person struggles to say no, and they have guilt in the fear of being rejected, or i.e., being abandoned. So they don't want to say no because the rejection leads to abandonment. Okay. The avoidant struggles with emotional expression and connection. One of the things that avoidants struggle with, and this is dismissive avoidance, they don't like emotional closeness. Okay. So when you get too close to them, they're getting triggered. They have to create distance because they feel like they're going to be overtaken. They're going to feel like they can't change their mind. They feel like you're gonna trap them. They feel like you're going to overwhelm them, and they won't be able to say they won't be able to get rid of you in a sense. Okay, you're too close. Okay, you're doing too much. And in a fearful avoidance, they struggle with inconsistency of boundary guilt. Okay, so where they will one day set a boundary and the next day they want to change it. They're like, okay, no, and then tomorrow, yes, and they feel guilty about that. They feel guilty that their emotions dictate their boundaries, so they're not consistent with it. Remember, the household they grew up in was an inconsistent household. Okay, and so the growth aspects that need to be done in each of these things, and we'll break this down further as well as we go along the slides, is that for the secure people, when they get to dating people, they actually model what boundary setting actually is. I said this before, secure people are not thinking about you when they set a boundary. And rightly so. When you set a boundary, you're not supposed to be thinking about the other person. You're thinking about you. Okay, when you set a boundary, it is not about them, it is about you. You are setting it because you need to have these boundaries in place so you can feel what? Safe, respected, and what? Valued. Say it with me now. Safe, respected, and valued. If you're going to write anything down, write that down. The reason why you're putting boundaries in place is to feel safe, respected, and valued. Okay, and secure people, they do this very well, and they model this very, very well through their actions. Now, the anxious people, the growth aspect is that they can start with small no's and then self-affirm because they find it difficult saying no. It's not about saying no every single time. It's about developing the muscle slowly over time where you're able to say no and no and no to a point where you're able to say more yeses. Because the more you say no, the more you can say yes. All right. The avoidance have to also slowly take this up as a pace to start building connection and allowing themselves to be able to build boundaries where they can actually grow into a connection. So the difficulty for avoidance is like either hot, is either full on or not full on. It's full off, and they find that frustrating. But they need to realize that it's not that case. People can grow. And so they have to allow themselves to be able to they have to allow themselves not to have such hard boundaries and actually allow for some level of flexibility to allow people to grow in the affection and the connection. Okay. And then fearful avoidance for them, journal and practice ahead of time because what fearful avoidance struggle with is a voice. So in order to grow, they're going to need to be able to journal and practice scripts of what they can say. Because oftentimes, fearful avoidance struggle with actually saying anything. They're so fearful, they don't want to say anything. They're afraid of being hurt. They're afraid of, and when I say hurt physically, they're afraid of being hurt emotionally. They're afraid of being hurt mentally. And because of that fear, it stops them from actually setting any kind of boundaries. Okay. Last thing here on this point is here's a sample of some of the boundaries that things people can say. All right. So a secure person might say, I can't today, but let's reschedule. And I think we all need to focus on this example because I think this is the best example of how to set some boundaries, right? I can't today, but let's reschedule. You know, maybe you can't do it today. In fact, maybe you can't do it at all. You know, I can't do it. Unfortunately, it's not my place to do so. You know what I mean? Like short and simple, nothing crazy. For the anxious person, an example could be, I want to help, but I'm already full today. You want to help. You want to do more than you probably should do. You want to go over and above and beyond. But you know what? You can't. Okay, you're fully overtaken. Okay, all right, too much. Then the avoidant might say something like this: I need space, but I'll follow up tonight. This is really important for avoidance because avoidants like their space, they like their time apart, they like to have, distance. But you can't just take distance and ratio and not tell anybody. It's selfish and becomes manipulative. It becomes painful for the other person too. All right. So it's okay that you want to take space. So how do you do that? You let people know that, hey, I need space, but I'll follow up tonight. I even like the fact that you should time box this. I don't think it's even fair for you to say, I'll need space and I'll follow up tonight, because what tends to happen is people take the mick. How people take the mick is that they end up saying something like, I'll follow up tonight, but then they don't follow up the very last minute. So just before you go to bed, they've messaged you. Nah, that's not going to work for nobody. You know what I'm saying to you? So time box it. Yeah, I'll be back in an hour. So people know. And then fearful avoidance. I need time to reflect. I'll circle back soon. Now, this one here for fearful avoidance, I'm going to hold them to account as well. I know some people like to be soft. I'm not here to be soft with you. I want you to grow. And when I'm coaching people, I want people to grow. The same thing I said about dismissive avoidance, I need fearful avoidance to do. This whole, I need time to reflect. I'll circle back. When you don't know when you're going to circle back, another person's waiting to see how you're going to circle back. Nobody's waiting 2-3 days. All right. Same thing I want to say to dismissives as well. I think a lot of times when I watch videos around avoidance, we kind of coddle them. And I'm a dismissive avoidance. So I know we get coddled. It's like, oh, give them as much time as you want. I'm going to tell you this now. If I tell you that give me some time, I'm going to guarantee it more than likely, I ain't going to message you back at all. Oh, I ain't. Because the reality is, we oftentimes like our control, and that's the struggle with this aspect. So what there needs to be is another aspect called time boxing. You must time box. So I can say, hey, you know what? Right now, I need time to reflect. I'll circle back in 2 hours' time. Why? Because it gives the other person a level of security and safety. Just saying I'm going to circle back is coddlewad. You know what I'm saying to you? It's coddlewad, and I think both dismissive and fearful avoidance do not need to be coddled. They need boundaries. And that's what we're talking about today. And I know a lot of dismissives and fearful avoidance are in the chat today and probably watching the show after as well. And I know that you'll go through this as well. I want to make it very, very clear. It's about understanding that when we're talking about these stuff, it's not to say that you to be beaten over the head, because especially with avoidance, you get a very bad rep. When I watch videos and stuff, they get a very bad rep. People kind of dote on them. Some of it is justified. I ain't gonna lie to you, okay? And I'm one of them, so I know some of it is justified because we do allow them to get away with a lot of madness. They need boundaries, and so therefore, in that aspect, you can't say, "Oh, I need time to reflect. I'll circle back." If you don't want to do something, then listen. Just say, "Listen, hey, I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to do this." Right? Rather than saying I'm going to circle back, because it's nonsense. It's actually not helping you, and it's actually not a direct boundary. You have to be very clear about what boundaries you want to do, both for dismissive and fearful avoidance. It's very clear. If you don't want to do something, you have to drop the boundary straight. You know what? I appreciate the offer, but I don't want to do it. Now, that's going to be very scary to do and very tough to do, but let's not set false expectations as a way of that's a win. It's not a win. When I coach people, I coach them to win. I don't coach them to coast. I want you to win. So if you don't want to do something, we are responding with, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It is not for me. And it's a no. That's going to be very scary for you. You probably never had to say no before, but you have to learn how to do it, because we don't want to set false expectations. Because what's going to happen is someone's going to come back again and they're going to call your name and they're going to be asking, oh, what happened? Okay? Same with dismissive avoidance. Saying I need space, but I'll follow up tonight. Please, please, please time box it. If you know you're not replying by tonight, I need you to set the expectation correctly. Hey, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I do not have the capacity to have this conversation tonight. I will have it tomorrow morning. We can have a conversation in the morning about this situation, right? Because you know you can't do it tonight. Because we're setting false expectations. Okay? We're setting false expectations. We need to set those boundaries, and we need to also we also need to and I even didn't even time box that. When I say tomorrow morning, you should set a time. You're saying you haven't got time. Okay, I'll do this by tomorrow morning, 8, 9 p.m., 9 a.m. Because actually, how I've just kind of described it, procrastination settles in for avoidance very quickly. And then what happens is 9 a.m. comes, you ain't done it. 10 a.m. comes, you ain't done it. 11 a.m. comes, you ain't done it. Then 1 p.m. hits, and you're like, damn, I said the morning. And this is what happens to avoidance. They get stuck. They're like, oh, it's 1 p.m. You know what? I said I was going to do it. Okay, I'll look at this. Give me another hour. It ain't done. By the time they realize the whole day is gone, they've missed the day, and now they feel bad. And what's going to happen is they're going to feel so bad. They're like, do you know what? There's no point even messaging them. Yeah. Can't go back now. No point. I was late. I don't want to get shouted at. I don't want to get cussed out. I don't want to get... And they start doing this whole thing. No, 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 no. Both doors. We're going to coach you to win. Set that time, and set that expectation, and stick to a time. You got to stick to a time. Put yourself on that boundary. Do not give yourself the grace, because you ain't going to fulfill it. Most times you ain't. Okay? 9, 8, you're going to say, I'm going to come back in the morning, and the morning comes and it doesn't get done. Now, is that every avoidant? No. There are some avoidants who, again, depending on their personality type, are very different. But there's a lot of avoidants who are procrastinators, and they will procrastinate beyond the time because they never set a time. Okay, so if you're not one of those avoidants who time is an issue, God bless you. Continue as you are. But there's a lot of avoidants that I know who are in this chat, who are watching on Instagram, who are procrastinators number one. Okay. All right. Procrastinate number one. So if you know that you want to, if you've got a boundary, if it's a no, just say it. Hey, I appreciate the offer. That's not being rude. You're being respectful. I appreciate the offer, but it's a no for me. Or, you know what? I love this. I love this offer. Can I look over this? I'm going to reply to you by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Then you set yourself a timer. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to always fulfill it, but it's setting a timer and expectation, because now you're going to be held to account. And that's the one thing you don't want to be done, but you still need to be accountable. Okay, so we're gonna move it on, because I don't got on the avoidance, and I'm sure they're probably sick of me by now. But I want to just make sure I want to coach this correctly, because a lot of the stuff I deal with clients, I can't coddle you. You know what I'm saying? I can't coddle you as an avoidant, and I can't coach you to lose. I must coach you to win. And when we coach you to win, we coach that by making sure you're doing the right things from the jump and not building that. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense for you guys. Okay. All right. Cool. Let's start here. So we're going to start with first secure attachments. As always, to start with them first and foremost. We're going to break them down for you guys in terms of how they deal with attachment styles as well. Okay. All right. So, first and foremost, attachment styles, again, when it comes to boundaries, they build safety, not distance. For them, they're about building boundaries safely and not trying to create distance. Okay. Remember, their core belief is they believe that relationships can be safe and repairable. That's what gives them the confidence to set a boundary. They feel safe and they feel that relationships are repairable. So, how do secure people handle relationships? Here's how. They set and respect boundaries without guilt or fear. They view boundaries as a way to protect connection, not avoid it. And they can say no without the fear of rejection and accept others' no with grace. Is assertive, not aggressive or passive. Let me drink some water because this is really important. Because secure people don't have necessarily the triggers that other attachment styles do, what that allows them to do is to not think about you when they're setting that boundary. They're thinking about themselves and what makes them feel safe, respected, and valued. Okay. And so they don't have the necessary fear or the guilt that the other attachments do. You know, the guilt that maybe an anxious person has for not helping you out, or the fear that the fearful avoidant has for being inconsistent or wanting to say no but can't say no. All right. Or the fear the avoidant has, the dismissive avoidant has, when they want to set a boundary, but you know what it is? They're gonna avoid it anyway. You know, they're not gonna let anybody close. They don't feel those things because they feel that relationships can be safe. Their way of dealing with anxiety is that they are regulated and they are resilient. It doesn't mean they don't feel stress, and it does not mean they don't feel any fear. But what it is that it's muted and it's minimalized, and so therefore their responses are conditioned that are optimal for them and for healthy relationships. Okay, so when it comes to saying no, they don't have the fear of rejection, abandonment, or betrayal. They're going to say no because they believe that's true for them. All right. And so when someone says no to them, they also don't fall into manipulation. Some of you, you know, some of us, we know. We are afraid that when someone says no to us, we might fall into that manipulation, right? Where we're like, oh, come on, you're not going to help me out? Like, oh, I've done all of this for you. You can't do this for me. Manipulation. Or, someone says no to you, and then you're like, oh man, everybody always says no. I knew you were gonna say no. I knew you weren't gonna help me. You fall into manipulation. Like those things. They don't fall into that. If you say no, they accept it as no, which actually is what everybody should be at because it relieves the pressure of people. The biggest issue that the other attachments have is that they're afraid that if they do say no, that they're gonna feel guilty. They're gonna feel guilt tripped by the other party. So secure people don't necessarily do that. Okay. Number two. Okay. Understanding again, build boundaries for them. Build safety, not distance. Okay. Safety, not distance. So what is secure people good at? They're good at setting clear, respectful limits without guilt. They're saying no and receiving no without overreacting, protecting their time, their energy, and emotional well-being while still being connected. Okay. All right. What they struggle with is that they may assume that others can set healthy boundaries too and not recognize when someone is boundary impaired. Because of the way that they often operate, they don't realize that not everyone does this. They don't realize that everyone struggles with this. They think that everyone's operating the same way. It doesn't happen like that. Okay. And so they can sometimes stay too long in one-sided relationships, believing it can be repaired. Because again, they believe in that relationships are safe and repairable. They think that they can not necessarily save anybody, but they believe that if they stay long enough, this person will learn this skill and they will change. But again, because of that, that's what the difficulty is for the secure people. They don't see that not everyone can do it and not capable of doing it. Okay. Number three, how they can practice growth, use boundaries as relational teaching tools. Okay, so for again secure people, they model what healthy boundaries is and what it feels like and what it sounds like on a regular basis because they live, eat, and breathe it, because they are it, because they are the secure one. It is coming natural. They're not figuring it out. They know what to say. They know how to communicate. They know how to soothe you. They know how to speak at very stressful times. They know how to deal with pressure in those points. They're emotionally resilient and regulated. So they're not feeling dysfunctional when there is a lot of things going on. No, they're able to still communicate. Okay. They're able to express needs gently when others struggle with boundaries. And I think this is where it's very difficult for everybody else. And this is a really good point that we can touch on that I want to talk about. Every other attachment, fearful, avoidant, dismissive, and anxious, struggle, okay, with expressing their needs when the relationship is getting stressful. Okay. So when the relationship isn't going the way you want it to go, or the relationship is going faster than you want it to go, or the relationship is going slower than you want it to go, or the relationship's not just, it's just that you don't have the control of this relationship, every other attachment style struggles with being able to say what their needs and wants are. Either they take it or they absolutely abandon their needs. The dismissive avoidant will take their needs. I need space, I'm just taking it. The anxious person will try to overserve and overdo in order so that they can get their needs met rather than just saying it what they feel. Reason being, once more again, is because of the fear and the guilt and the shame. And because they haven't done the work to be able to find their assertive voice and to deal with pressurized situations. Let me give you another example. The other attachment styles overcompensate. Okay, they overcompensate for everybody else. They're always thinking about other people. They're always projecting of what other people might do. But the secure person is not thinking about the other people. They're thinking about themselves. And that's a difficulty that a lot of the other attachment styles have, is that they can't prioritize themselves, but they can sure ass project. Okay, so they're going to project in a second, but forget their priorities. So what I mean by that is, when I say priorities, it's not that they don't know their priorities, it's the way they deal with their priorities. If the anxious person wants more connection, rather than stating they want more connection, they might do things to try and get more connection, right? Get clingy. The avoidant person, dismissive, rather than saying, I do need a bit of space, can I have about kind of an hour to myself just to recharge and come back to you, just takes the space or creates a problem and then takes space. The fearful avoidant, may struggle with a situation where they're feeling overwhelmed. And rather than just actually describing that, hey, I've got a lot of things in my mind, I'm overwhelmed right now, can I have a minute or two? Can I have an hour or whatever just to recoup, be myself? Rather than doing that, okay, what they're going to do is they're going to self-sabotage because they're now not feeling worthy of this love, and they don't feel like they can be loved, and they're afraid of being hurt. So I'm going to hurt you first before you hurt me, right? Instead of actually just expressing their needs, they're now using passive aggressive means. Okay, and this is why boundaries oftentimes don't get instituted the way they need to actually get dealt with officially. Okay, so an example of secure attachment boundaries is this: I want to be there for you, but I also need rest tonight. Can we talk tomorrow? How many people feel a struggle around this area where they want to be able to say, they want to be able to help, but they don't want to seem like the bad guy, right? I don't want to be the bad guy, so I don't want to say nothing. You know what I mean? Like, or they're going through a tough time right now. You see, you're still projecting. You're making them the priority rather than yourself. What is it you need? The secure person is able to say, hey, look, I want to be there for you, but I also need rest tonight. Can we talk tomorrow? Because what's going to happen for instance, the attachment styles is that resentment builds up because they're doing things that they should have said no for. And instead of saying no, they then start to use manipulation and passive aggressive tactics where it's like, oh, I did this for you. Why can't you do it for me? Right? When it should be no, they said no, just accept the no. Doesn't matter whether we did it for them or not. Just accept the no. But it's because you don't actually ask for your needs to be met on a regular basis. Number two, another example is I value our relationship, so I'm going to be honest when something doesn't sit right with me. Again, the other attachment styles may struggle with this because they wait for the things not to sit right with them and then they blow up. Whether it's that they become avoidant and stonewall, or whether they blow up, have an angry lash out like a fearful avoidant, or stonewall like a dismissive avoidant, or the anxious person is going to absolutely overwhelm you with clinginess. Okay? All right, cool. Another example is I need some time to think, but I love to reconnect after. These are secure responses, I care about you, but I need to prioritize my rest tonight. Again, aspect of it as well, right? And so, growth focus for secure people is maintain consistency and help teach others what healthy love looks like, which is what secure people do because of their actions speak louder than their words. Let's deal with anxious people now, right? Let's deal with the anxious people and their perspective. And I know that we're going to be probably longer than here than an hour. Probably going to be about an half an hour, actually, an hour and a half, because it's going to take a long while to break it down. Again, anxious people, okay? Their core fear is abandonment, okay? And so they are over flexible, unclear, or self sacrificing when it comes to their boundaries, okay? So what they struggle with is being able to set good boundaries. They always want to overgive. And you've heard me say it before, if you overgive, you're going to meet people that are going to overtake, all right? And when you're overtaken, say no more. How they handle boundaries, anxious people, is that they struggle to enforce boundaries for the fear of abandonment. They often overgive, say yes when they mean no, and feel resentful later. They may lose their identity in relationships, trying to maintain closeness, and they feel guilty or anxious after setting a boundary. If you are an anxious person, you need to fight back the urge of becoming codependent and enmeshing with somebody where you over identify with their needs. You're becoming one with them to a point where their needs are your needs. No, 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 no. Your needs are your needs and their needs are their needs. That's what boundaries is. Boundaries is able to tell yourself, this is where I begin and this is where I end. I don't end with you. I end with me. My skin is boundaries. I don't attach myself and my skin to someone else. My boundary is the end of the skin. It's not the end of somebody else's body. All right? So anxious people will struggle to enforce their boundaries because they're afraid of being abandoned, they're afraid of being rejected, they're afraid of being alone, they're afraid that if they're going to be too much of a burden, they feel like they're going to be doing, people are going to complain about them if they say something, and so they won't get their needs met, right? They won't do it because they won't say it. And so they try to overgive to compensate for that and then get resentful later. You don't do this for me. You know, I've done all of this for you. I've bent over backwards for you. I do X, Y, and Z for you, and you don't do it for me. Well, actually, did anybody ask you? I know you said yes out of the goodness of your heart, but did you want to say no? Were you overgiving? Did anybody ask you? Did anybody send you? Right? Don't lose your identity trying to over identify with someone else because you're afraid of losing them. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Okay? All right. So, what anxious people are really good at is they're being emotionally available. And I'm going to explain this. I said I was going to explain this earlier on. The reason why I want to explain this is that I believe emotional availability is the ability to give and to take. So when I say emotional availability, I don't think that anxious people are actually emotionally available. I think all three attachments are actually not that emotionally available because you need to be able to have both the ability to give and to take. Can they become emotionally available? Absolutely. But just because they give and they are switched on does not mean they're emotionally available. When you give and you're not able to receive and not able to tell people what your needs are, you're not as actually available as you think you are. That's why you meet somebody who's not available because you're not available, right? So, but again, they're good in terms of being emotionally, aware. Let's say they're vigilant, they're aware. They are people who like to fill in. They make sure that relationships stick together. They're good at that, and then picking up on others' needs and empathizing. They are able to see what other people need and they fill in the gaps and they plug the holes. Okay. All right. They're also good at wanting closeness, which can lead to open conversations if they feel safe. So they can create environments where people can feel comfortable to share and express how they actually feel, because of their want and need for closeness in that space. All right. Where they struggle is saying no out of the fear of rejection or abandonment. Okay, they also struggle with enforcing personal limits, time, space, emotional energy, and again feeling guilt after setting a boundary. I want to focus on enforcing personal limits as well. Okay, that your time, your space, your finances, your body, your emotions, they are your responsibility. Okay, you are to govern them, and as you govern them, you must understand that you're in control. and that you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to say, this doesn't work for me. You're allowed to say, this, I don't want to do this. Because when you don't, what tends to happen is you're going to start doing favors for people, and those favors may not be returned. And when they're not returned, you're now angry. And your anger isn't that you'll maybe beat someone over the head. No, but your anger will be implosive. It's within yourself. It's internal. Resentment, bitterness, anger, unforgiveness start to stoke itself. Okay? All right? How can you practice growth? It's to start small and normalize discomfort. Anxious people don't like discomfort. It's why they actually have separation anxiety. Like if they feel the anxiety, if they feel that the ratio is distancing at any point, they're going to close it because they're uncomfortable with discomfort. It's like I don't feel good. I don't feel good that we're having this distance. No, I got to close it. So immediately they close it. All right. So for anxious people, they need to start with low risk boundaries. Something like, I need 30 minutes alone before we talk. The reason why they need to have that kind of boundary is also because they need to learn how to self-soothe. Because anxious people are really good at co-regulating. Too good. And that's a problem. Because now they want to over-regulate. And that over-regulation causes other people to feel some type of way. If you don't know what co-regulation means, it's the ability for us to both be able to come together and be able to, how do I say this, another word for regulate without using regulate. They're able to maintain their emotional security or their emotional stability by having interaction with opposite party. So if an anxious person is talking to somebody else, they'll calm down. That's the opposite of avoidance. Avoidance will actually be more heightened by speaking to somebody. You're like, no. I need my space, I need my time. But the anxious person feels more calmer when they talk to someone and process together. And so what that co-regulation allows is people to come together and work and kind of stabilize each other. But what they actually need to do more, anxious people, is to be able to self-soothe. So going for a walk, journaling. If you need to go, I used to do. I used to go out to the. I'm probably people are probably scared. I used to go out to a park at night. Now you can't do this if you're a lady because you don't want to get kidnapped. But I would go at nighttime and I would scream. It was wild. I'll be there like and I'll do that because I want just to release. It feels better. I can't lie to you. Now I'm sure somebody thought it's crazy, but it is what it is. All right, self-soothing. Okay, remind yourself boundaries do not equal rejection. And also, them saying no is not actually necessarily a rejection. When I say rejection, what I mean by that is them saying no doesn't mean they don't love you no more. Them saying no is them actually loving themselves and loving you because they know they can't fulfill your needs. And by saying yes to something they want to say no to, they're not loving you and they're not respecting you and they're not respecting themselves. Okay? So don't take the no personal, right? Don't internalize it and personalize it. Okay? Affirm yourself by saying no protects my peace, not the relationship, the value. Okay, your no is about your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, your financial health, your sexual health. You know what I'm saying to you? You're protecting those aspects, and that's why you're building a fence around it. It does not dictate now or reduce the relationship's value. If anything, the value goes up. You know what I mean? Okay, so again, examples for anxious people. I didn't want to go, but I didn't want to upset them. Okay, I said yes because I was afraid they stopped loving me. Those examples are what are bad examples of giving boundaries, right? When you say, "Oh, I didn't want to go, but I didn't want to upset them." If you're saying this, you stop. If you're saying this, you stop. Okay, I said yes because I was afraid they stopped loving me. No one's gonna stop loving you, and if they do, they're not your friend, they're not your family, they're not your loved ones. Okay, all right. Don't let them manipulate you. Okay, a better example would be I love helping, but I'm already stretched thin. I need to pass on this one. See the way it is? You're not disrespectful. I love helping. You're letting them know I want to even help, but I'm already stretched thin. I need to pass on this one. Let me tell you this now. If you state your boundary, what you have to understand is boundaries is consensual. Boundaries is consent. So if I say, right, I'm going to explain what I mean by consent. If I say, I love helping, but I'm already stretched thin, I need to pass on this one. And you go on, oh, but come on. Come on. Just, help me out here. And they keep pushing. That's not consensual. This is coercion. And you need to be aware that it's manipulative. And what you're going to realize is the moment you start putting up boundaries, you're going to realize how many people are manipulative. I was one of those people. I can't lie to you. When a girl, when a girl says she don't love you no more, you got to prove your point. Yeah. We've all done that when you're young. That girl that you don't text no more, and you got to come back and see, like, wait, is she trying to move on? Like, we've all been there. Bastards. You know what I'm saying to you? Bastards, or a lot of them. But I'm just telling you again, they're manipulative. They're not respecting your boundaries. Okay, there should be consequences. They gotta go. Another example would be: I like to be there for you, but I also need time to process how I'm feeling. So again, just in case you're gonna feel some guilt, it's understandable, but you're unfortunately going to need to process your time. Okay, you're gonna need to process your time. All right, so you need to be able to have that space. You can't do it. You can't do everything. Okay, so here's some of the things you can practice in order to help you. Okay, write a list to go. So, for your boundary phrases, right? So, because anxious people struggle with their voice and speaking up, you might want to write a list of phrases ahead of time and begin practicing them. Okay, you got to stand in your mirror, stand in your room, practice that, saying, hey, I would love to help, but you know I need time to process things. Or, I would love to help, but I need a weekend to myself to be able to do what I need to do. I would love to help, but this week I'm fully booked. Right, you can use this in hard moments. I need some time before I can answer. Let me check in with myself first and get back to you. Okay. All right, I need some time before I can answer. Let me check in with myself first and get back to you. Okay, practicing that, getting your muscles ready to getting your muscles used to saying those things. Right, it will start working itself out, trust me. Okay, so again, growth practice, boundary rehearsal and affirmation, as we just said a minute ago. Write and practice boundary phrases, like it's okay to disappoint others, to honor myself. Because one of the things about anxious people is what they struggle with is that they actually dishonor themselves and they want to honor other people. Anxious people are people that will pedestalize others whilst removing themselves. And we know this because I've told you that for anxious people, they actually put more trust in other people than they do themselves. And with dismissive avoidance, they have a high trust of themselves, not of other people. So what happens is anxious people are very overly dependent, and avoidance are very hyper independent. And then fearful avoidance flip between the two. Okay? All right, they flip between the two. All right. Number two is to journal how enforcing a boundary brought peace, even if it was uncomfortable. And sometimes peace does not mean reconciliation. You may say a boundary to somebody, and it may not bring peace to a relationship in terms of you being reconciled, but it will make. But what you will find is peace with yourself because you've done what you wanted to do. Okay. All right, dismissive avoidance. Children who grew up in households where the caregiver or parent was not able to show emotional care. They were neglected or abusive in the caregiving. And when children are punished for relying on caregivers, they often avoid seeking assistance in the future. So if you've had a situation where you were a kid and you try to ask for help and you were punished, rejected, pushed aside, then you probably might have the dismissive avoidant traits. Okay, the core fear is losing independence and rejection. They fear this, all right, and there's a rigidity over distant and self-protective. So their boundaries when it comes to dismissive avoidance is that they are overly rigid. Okay, all right, they are overly distant and they're self-protective. You meet someone who's a dismissive avoidant, they're gonna give you a boundary in a second, and sometimes they don't even tell you. You just feel it. You sometimes you don't even know it's happening. You just suddenly feel that you're being given a boundary. They've distanced themselves. They've ghosted you. They've disappeared for a good week and come back. They're going to set some boundaries. Maybe not in the right way, but they're going to set some boundaries. Okay. How do they handle boundaries? Again, dismissives will keep people at arm's length, as I just said. They may create emotional walls instead of relational doors. They often withdraw instead of communicating a need, and fear being controlled or emotionally engulfed. Let's break this down. So, with dismissive avoidance, because they fear the emotional connection and they fear being engulfed, what they do is they keep people at arm's length. They also struggle because they're afraid if they say yes, they can't say no tomorrow. They with dismissive avoidance, they're very rigid. They believe that if they've said yes today, It has to be yes tomorrow because they're all about consistency and they don't like being inconsistent. And that's why dismissive avoidance are oftentimes seeking for partners who have a level of consistency. And the moment you find a dismissive avoidant date somebody that's got emotional instability, oh, they're out. They're out. Mhm. They are out. They don't want to be there no more. You know what I'm saying to you? They don't want to be there. What dismissive avoidance will tend to do is create very high emotional walls instead of relational doors. And what that means is for them, they build these very tall walls that only the strongest of God's warriors will jump over. You know how I feel about that? Okay, they build these very tall walls where you have to go through loops, fires, floods. You have to experience God's judgment before you can even get past that defense. And when you finally get there, you've got them all. But you may die before you get there. You know what I'm saying to you? You face more trials than Hercules. You know what I'm saying to you? All right, you face more trials than Hercules, and so for you, that person, you might find yourself exhausted before you even get to that place. So they create these very high walls to protect themselves from people outside. The problem is you can't relate to people outside. If you build those high walls, yeah, it keeps people out, but it also means that you struggle to connect with others because you're always having to, you yourself have to get over those walls, right? And number three is often withdraw instead of communicating the needs. So because a dismissive avoidance feel that their needs will not be met, they feel that their needs will be ignored, they feel their needs will be dismissed, they don't believe their needs will be met. So they just take it. So they're taking it. What I mean by that is they'll just withdraw. They'll stonewall. They'll just disappear. They'll ghost, right? Or they even say, I think they can even be very sharp, very curt, sometimes rude, right? Very strict, black and white. It is or it isn't. Because for them, they have to protect themselves. And they don't like limbo and they don't like grace. So they often withdraw instead of actually communicating their need because they don't believe that you'll meet their need, or at least you'll deny their need and reject them. And that means now there's going to be an argument or instability. And one thing they don't want is conflict. Conflict. It's not something that a dismissive avoidant wants to even test. They don't want to even try. Okay? And so they fear being controlled or emotionally engulfed by another party. So dismissive avoidants tend to, because they tend to be operating in their dismissiveness, they tend to meet what we call the anxious people. And they formulate what we call the anxious avoidant trap, where the anxious chases the avoidant because it makes the avoidant feel good. And the avoidant feels good for a while, but then feels like they're being trapped because the anxious person wants more and more. And they're like, no. You're too close and doing too much. And you're doing too much emotional closeness and connectivity with me. I'm overwhelmed. I need to separate myself. And then they disappear. But then they come back. And I've run out of water. I need my water. Okay. Have I got any more? Somewhere around there. Okay. So again, dismissive avoidants are good at protecting their time, their space, and their independence. Okay. All right. One thing they do very well is they will protect that space very well. Okay. They say no when something feels overwhelming. Okay. And stay grounded in logic during conflict. So they're not trying to get emotional. They're not trying to get overwhelmed in that situation. When it comes to a conflict, they're going to talk about the facts, and it's the facts only. We ain't got time to do emotionality, straight facts. What are the facts? Okay. Oftentimes, I find women that are often dismissive, avoidant. If you ever go to red pill spaces, or sorry, I shouldn't have red pill. If you ever go to manosphere spaces with predominantly men in, the women that are there, I also find are very dismissive. That's why they're able to think like the men, because most of the men are dismissive themselves, right? That's what I often find. I find women that are very secure, they're not trying to be in the manosphere space, but that's just my observation. What they struggle with, overusing boundaries, as I said before, because they believe they need space. Okay, all right, because they believe they want their space. They struggle in that area. Okay, emotionally. They confuse walls with boundaries, as I said before earlier on. They don't do feelings. And they fail to communicate boundaries clearly. Okay, so again, dismissives will take what they want, but not necessarily communicate to you. So you are left in limbo. You're not sure what's going on. You're not sure what's happening. And they'll struggle with the area where it comes to really being able to communicate what they actually need. because again, they don't feel that their needs will be met. Okay, all right. So that's a big thing. All right. Some examples that can be bad. I don't want to talk about it about feelings. Let's just move on. So that's a dismissive avoidant. Do what a dismissive does best. Dismissing. Okay, that is what a dismissive avoidant does best. He'd be like, yeah, I don't want to talk feelings. Let's just move on. Okay. And another one is I need space, but never follows up, clarifies what it looks like. So you see what I said earlier on? You see why I said earlier on? That's why I said this earlier on. I said when avoidants do this, I'm so sorry. Do not give, like, it's not saying don't give them space. What you need to ask for is like, hey, I appreciate. Okay, so I'm gonna give an example. So when they say I need space, but they don't follow up with what that looks like or time limit, right? What you need to do is think about your needs, what makes you feel safe, and what makes you feel respected. Okay. So in that space, here's how you potentially can respond to something like that. Okay. All right. The way that you can respond to that. Now, hold on. Let me just do this. Okay. Just want to make sure I've written this down so you got it as well. The way you can respond to this, because if you just don't even this specific one, is, hey, I really appreciate, thank you for letting me know that you need space, right? First thing, acknowledge what they've done. Thank you very much for allowing me to, thank you for acknowledging me and let me know you need space. For me to feel safe, I would just like to know how long would you need that space for so that I can also feel safe and feel reassured. I need an hour. Okay, cool. Right? Now, if they say, oh, I might need 2 or 3 days, right? And you can say, well, whilst I appreciate, you needing to recharge and take 2 to 3 days, okay, this doesn't make me feel safe. This doesn't also make me feel connected when you take 2 to 3 days. Can we negotiate the time, please? Right? Because 2 to 3 days is crazy. And someone might take 2 to 3 days. You need to be able to discuss that. Again, it's about you being able to state your needs, but doing it in a way that's not disrespectful or that robs the other person of their autonomy. You're stating what you need, okay? Right? And how it affects you. So you can negotiate, or ask the avoidant person, okay, again, how long do you need? That puts it in their ball of court. I have no problem with you taking some space. How long do you need in order to recharge and come back? Because I can't wait to be able to connect with you again. Okay, I need a couple of hours. All right, fine, no worries. I'll go and do some stuff in that meantime, and then we'll reconnect later on. Okay, you see that point? There we go. All right. Really important dealing with that aspect. Okay. All right. Because honestly, avoidance, I don't care what no one says. I don't care how they coddle them. I don't care how they want to give. Listen, I'm going to avoid it myself. Give me too much space. Give me too much. They take liberties. They take liberties. Honestly, they'll take liberties. You have to be able to state your boundaries. In fact, your boundaries is what gives them respect. Your boundaries is what makes an avoidant respect you, because the avoidant will take their boundaries. They will take it. So what makes them respect you is that you are able to eloquently let them know you have boundaries too. They're expecting you to try and manipulate them. They're expecting you to try and gaslight them. They're expecting you to try and fight them. We're not doing that. What we're going to let them know is, hey, I really appreciate you letting me know that you need time and space alone to recharge yourself. Okay. How long do you need? Because I can't wait to reconnect with you, and I'll be here waiting to reconnect with you. Right? Okay, you need a couple of hours. All right, no problem at all. You take a couple of hours. I'll see you then, and we'll reconnect then. We're letting them know that it's still safe. We're not being rude. We're not being disrespectful. We're not being mean. We're not trying to fight them on this. We're letting them know how to handle the boundaries in what they're dealing with. Do not think that you're doing them a favor by going whatever you want. Because I promise you now, you're going to find out, like everybody else has, that they're going to take the mile. Okay? They're going to take the mile. They're going to come back whenever they want to come back. Okay? So an example for dismissal avoidance that's really important for them is, because again, they're rigid, they're over-distant and self-protected, I need a quiet evening to recharge. Can we talk tomorrow instead? Which I said was cool, but I like to say they should time box it. All right? Time boxing is important because people know what it is. Okay, all right. So you can let them know, hey, look, I really appreciate again you letting me know that you need a quiet evening to recharge. Let's talk about this tomorrow. Can we talk at 9 a.m. tomorrow? I need half an hour of your time. We'll talk about it then and regroup. So the person knows, you ask the question, does 9 a.m. work for you? Right? We're saying, we're giving them the space. We're saying, okay, you don't want to talk tonight. That's not a problem. You know what? I'm ready to concede that to you. You know what? I appreciate you sharing that. We don't have to talk about it tonight. We can talk about this tomorrow. Let's talk at 9 a.m. Let's talk. I need half an hour. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is 9 a.m. going to come and they ain't going to be there. Okay? All right? They're going to get scared of having that conversation. Okay? Another thing for them, again, for dismissives to do is when I feel overwhelmed, I tend to pull away. It's not about you. It's how I self-protect. Okay. So this is what we call RTT, real time truth. Being able to eloquently let the other party know what's going on in your mind. Okay. So if you're an avoidant, I need you to pay attention to this aspect. You are allowed to say what you need. You are going to get your needs met when you say it. Closed mouths don't get fed. Okay. Closed mouths don't get fed. You're not going to get your needs met by keeping quiet. Your needs are going to get met when you open them up. Yes, this person may say no, but no does not mean they don't value you and they don't appreciate you. Okay? It's not a rejection of you. It is the fact that that may be their boundary. Okay? So by all means, yes, when let people know what's going on. When I feel overwhelmed, I tend to pull away. It's not about you. It's how I self-protect. It's also important. RTT, real time truth. Okay? Here's some growth practices, okay, that you can start to do for dismissive avoidant growth practices. Soft boundaries, clear communication. Okay. All right. So practicing expressing needs before shutting down. I need 30 minutes to decompress, then I'd like to talk. Okay. So here's what you need to do as a dismissive avoidant person. You need to practice this in the mirror. Okay. I used to do this in acting. When I was doing acting, what I would do is I would actually say the lines and then I would record it and then I would fill in the blanks of what my lines were. Right. And that's how I practice. Well, you need to do the same thing. You need to practice this in your mirror at home alone. You need to be making sure that you're talking to yourself. So you're getting yourself used to saying these words. Right. I need 30 minutes to decompress and then I'd like to talk. You're now having the ball in your court. You're still in control. Okay. Right. Reflect on which boundaries are actually walls, not fear, from that are built from fear, not wisdom. Okay. So understanding what things are actually good for you and what things are actually just fear. Like, you know what I'm saying to you? Understanding that aspect. Okay. My thing now is like here's my thing. One of the things boundaries I built in that has made it a little bit better, but I still need to do better, is when someone calls me, I'll say, hey, I got 20 minutes. I'll say it from the beginning of the conversation because what I don't want is that when it gets to 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I'll be looking at the clock like, damn, I've got work to do and I feel bad. I don't want to interrupt. But here's what's going to happen after. Next time you call, I'm going to avoid you. So what a dismissive avoidant can do in this scenario is to what we call time box again. So what I do is I time box with people. If I know I haven't got time that day, I'll be like, listen, I see your call. Thank you. I got 15 minutes. I got 15 minutes. All right. Or I'm just about to do some work, but I got 5 minutes. Talk to me. What do you want? So that people know what it is, and so I can get out of there. Because I'm gonna feel bad, and I don't want to feel bad. Okay. Another thing, how can they practice growth? Use boundaries again. Learn to say, "I need space, but I care about you, and we'll come back." This is very important. If you've got partners who are not avoidants, you dealing with them when you take your space, letting them know that you still care about them, that you still love them, because this may feel like abandonment to some of them. Okay, so just being clear and honest about that. Okay, practice emotional boundaries, not just physical ones. Okay, because dismissives are very good at creating physical boundaries. They will leave you in a desert with no water. They will distance themselves from you in a second. They will let you know that they're not going to have you in their space. But they need to start practicing emotional boundaries, which means opening your mouth to say, "This is what I need from you." I need clear cut communication. Say it with me. The 3 C's. Clear cut communication. Say it with me. Clear cut communication. Write that down. Clear cut communication. That's what you need. Okay? Clear cut communication. All right. So you can practice. A practice tip is to try the pause, express, re engagement. So just taking a second, pause to breathe. Okay, then express your needs and then reconnect intentionally after. That pause is important because many people react rather than respond. Okay, all right. You need to be able to do this where you're not reacting, you're responding. Okay, you need to do that. So take a breath, take a breather, compose yourself, and then be able to express your need and reconnect intentionally. Of course, this is all going to take some time, but it's why you have to practice some of these lines so you have it ready in your arsenal. Okay. All right. Fearful avoidance now. We're going to deal with them. Okay. Fearful avoidance. We're going to deal with them, and this will be the last one. Okay. This will be the last one. Fearful avoidance in the chat. Okay. So if your fearful avoidance is for you, when it comes to boundaries and breaking this down for you guys as well. And by the way, if you guys are here, this is what we talk about in coaching a lot of times. So I deal with a lot of this in coaching with all attachment styles, and we're always trying to heal them. And in fact, this March and April, what I've also done is taken a time out to build worksheets. I have a ton of worksheets, homework for people to do outside of this as well. Okay, so that you can actually help yourself and your growth as well. So if you're need, not even if you need, if you know you're struggling with your attachments, you're struggling in relationships, you're not getting the results that you want, this is a time to reach out to me. Can't lie to you. You know what I'm saying to you? I've opened up my schedule again. I haven't got that many spots because I'm only taking a few people. So I only want to concentrate on people this year. Reach out to me because the amount of notes that I give people, the exercises I give you, the worksheets I give you, like a Word document the other day, the Word document I gave somebody was 12 pages long. Like I'm serious. I'm coaching you to win. I'm not coaching you just because it feels good. I'm coaching you to win. I want you to leave me and be like, yo, my life has changed. So when I'm coaching you to win. I will give you notes. I will give you reflection questions for journal. I will give you analysis of the notes where you can work on. And then I'll give you exercises according to the topic because that's what we have to do. We have to, if we're going to coach you to win, you need all the tools available. You know what I'm saying to you? So reach out to me. Let's get the coaching on board, man. Don't waste time. You know what I'm saying to you? Let's get you healed in 2025. All right? Growth, transformation, healing. All right. My last one. I ain't got no water left. Damn. I left myself like a person in the desert with no water. All right. So fearful avoidant. Okay. Fearful avoidance exhibit a puzzling combination of behaviors, appearing disorientated, confused, because they grew up in households where the parent was both the abuser and the comforter, in a sense. The parent was unpredictable, and so they've learned that with unpredictable parents, they have to also be unpredictable because there's no other resolution to being unpredictable, you know. And so they exhibit what we call disorganized behavior. Okay, disorganized behavior. All right. So this is another thing. Okay. So for them, fearful avoidance. All right. For them, fearful avoidance. Oh, I've gone too far. How they handle boundaries is a swing between no boundaries, and then having boundaries. If you ever met a fearful avoidant, it can be frustrating. Just like avoidance, just like dismissive avoidance can be frustrating because avoidance, in essence, right? The key word is avoidance. And so what you're going to find is with fearful avoidance is that they can swing between saying no 1 minute and it's very strong to be like, okay, I'm okay with it. And you're like, wait, what? What's going on? I'm confused because now you said no, but you were saying yes earlier on, or you said yes, you said no now, and now you're saying yes. And it can be confusing because they're going based upon their feelings. And because they sometimes are overwhelmed, what they're afraid of is rejection, abandonment, and betrayal. And depending where you are on a scale, fearful avoidance are on a spectrum between anxious and avoidant. They can be more avoidant at times or more anxious. Depends on what's happening in the environment with them or depending upon the person they are dealing with. So if you find yourself switching between the two, like, oh, I feel more anxious sometimes or I feel more avoidant sometimes, more than likely you're fearful avoidant because you're flicking between the two, right? And so they can do no boundaries to suddenly being very harsh withdrawal. So 1 minute they are no boundaries, free going, free flowing. They are full of energy, full of vibes, just going with the flow, and suddenly, park the brakes. Suddenly it's like, no, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And you're confused because did I offend you? Did I piss you off? Did I hurt you? What happened? And it's simply because the fear of their fear of being hurt is now playing a role. So they might feel safe, but they're now feeling unsafe from the safety. Can you understand what that is? Can you imagine feeling safe but feeling unsafe from the safety? And the reason why they're feeling unsafe from the safety is because whenever they felt safe, then the safety never lasted long because it was always about to be an unsafe situation they were about to be thrown into as a child. Remember, the caregiver is unpredictable. So they might be safe today, but in about an hour's time, the parent's going to come home and make it an unsafe environment. The parent is feeling safe today and they're having a good day, but tomorrow they're going to be drunk. Today they have a good day. The parent is around for 2 to 3 days. The parent abandons them for 2 months. Right? So again, safety for them is consistency, but the problem with that is it's very difficult because they actually start feeling like when it's safe, they're waiting for the shoe to drop. They're just waiting for. I know it's gonna happen soon. I know it's gonna happen soon. Okay, so sometimes they can say yes when they mean no. Now this is really scary because saying yes when you really say no is scary business, people. But they can say yes when they mean no. Okay, and what can be confusing is that then they can explode or they can ghost you. Right, so their anger is built. They can do what we call a lash out. Okay. Now, if you're fearful avoidant, y'all have levels to the lash out. Okay, because it depends on how it is. They can have a lash out, or they can ghost, serious withdrawal. Right. So you can 1 minute be talking to them, and then next minute it can be a serious withdrawal where they just disappear. Like for instance, you can have a great night with a fearful avoidant, and I don't mean that naughtily, by the way. I mean you can have a great night where you guys are chatting, chopping it up. It's feeling good. Life is sweet. And then suddenly, the next day, they completely withdraw. It's funny, they're doing the exact same thing that they experienced as a child. The very thing that caused them the anxiety, the very thing that caused them the pain, the very thing that caused them to feel like they're being abused and taken advantage of, and they couldn't actually have the words to formulate to be able to express how they actually felt as a child, is now the same thing they're doing to you. It's a pattern. So now, when they feel like they can't say no, and they've said yes to something, or they've had a conversation with you and it's been a really great conversation. They've been vulnerable, they've been open, and they suddenly disappear and they ghost you, right? It's because they don't have the words of expression. To be able to express how they actually feel. So what do? They take, and that's my point about dealing with avoidance. Avoidance are takers. So what ends up happening is they take rather than actually being able to express. And whenever you don't express, you're viable to take an action. And the action in this case will be to take. Because they couldn't say no or say yes, sorry, at a certain point. Couldn't say no at a certain point. They need to retrieve that aspect. Right? They feel that their will has been impeded on. And it doesn't have to be anything you did. It's simply because they were not true to themselves. Okay? They often set boundaries after a trigger, not proactively. So they'll wait for a situation to blow up, get crazy, move mad, then they're setting the boundary. So they've been taken advantage of, they've been hurt, they've been doing this, and now they're setting a boundary. And it's like, wait, what? That's why fearful avoidance can end up in very abusive relationships because they don't set boundaries until it gets bad. Because they don't feel like they can. They're always afraid of being hurt. Okay? All right? They struggle to believe that they deserve to have needs. They don't feel they're lovable. They don't feel that people can care about them. So, of course, when it comes to boundaries, why would anybody care about my boundaries? So, what's the point of putting them on? Until they get angry and then they put boundaries up, right? And again, I'm gonna say it again, almost like no one's gonna care about me, no one's gonna love me. It's almost like a self-pity party, just a little bit. I say the same about dismissive avoidance as well. It's like they're having their moment, they're down, they're downcast, like, oh, like, no one's gonna love me, no one's gonna care about me. And then you trip the wire and see what happens. Trip the wire and see what happens. They're about to put some boundaries up. Hardcore wires. Okay? All right? So, what are they good at? They're good at sensing when something feels unsafe or off. And they're also good at wanting to be authentic and open in relationships. Fearful avoidants are very open. They want to have discussions. They want to talk. They want to be deep. They want to be able to express, true sentiments and feelings. Okay, and so they crave authenticity from people. All right, and so when they see that people are not being authentic with them, they notice that. Okay. Here's what they struggle with: setting clear or consistent boundaries. It's the consistent part that's even the difficult part. It's the consistency that they struggle with. Okay, because 1 minute it could be this, 1 minute it could be that. They say yes to avoid conflict, but then ghost, lash out, or withdraw. So instead of them actually saying no and letting them know, like, hey, I appreciate you giving me this offer, but I will just say I will decline it. Right? Rather than saying that, they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, cool, no. But then ghost you, withdraw, or lash out. Okay. And so they have a very big, strong feelings of guilt and shame when they assert themselves. So instead of actually just saying, this is what I want, they feel guilty. They feel shameful. They feel embarrassed. They feel like they're not worthy of that. So they won't say it. And actually, what ends up happening is they do passive aggressive things to try and get those needs met. Okay. So, yeah. So an example of such a statement is, I'm feeling overwhelmed and need a few hours to regroup. I'm not okay. That's a good one. Sorry. Let me just one. I let them back in after they hurt me, but now I don't trust them. Okay, that's an example for them. I said nothing for weeks and then blocked them out of nowhere. Now, fearful avoidants are really good at this, right? They'll be like, yeah, 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 block out of nowhere. You don't know where it came. Yeah, 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 yeah. You're done. Shout out to Fearful Avoidance. I got love for them, man. No beef, no beef for them. They will let you know eventually. All right, okay. They'll let people back in that they know are not good for them. Sorry about that. My mic was playing up there. Okay. All right. So what I say? Sorry. So as I was saying, they will let people back. Listen, I don't know what's going on. Okay, my mic went out. My mic trying to play up. They're trying to tell me something. I don't know what's going on. My mic trying to tell me something. I don't know what they're trying to do to me. But let me go back to what I was about to say. You know what I mean? See, as I'm trying to help people, look at the devil working his magic, trying to be against me when I'm trying to help the people that be healed. Huh? Anyway, here's an example of this, right? So they may be feeling over you. So here's an example to say as a boundary, right? You may say, I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need a few hours to regroup. I'm not shutting you out. I just need to take care of me. Okay, beautiful. It allows the person to know. Look what it's saying. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Person knows how you're feeling, and I need a few hours to regroup. You've set a time. You've time boxed. I'm not shutting you out. You've reassured them. I just need to take care of me. You've let them know what it's for. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So another thing is, I've realized I said yes too quickly. I actually need to say no, and I hope you understand. Even if they don't understand, send them on away. You know what I mean? Even if they don't, send them on away. Okay. All right. So you can run it back. You don't have to stick. If you said yes, you can run it back and say, actually, no, I can't do it. It's okay. Don't ghost them. Don't withdraw. Just let them know, hey, I can't do it. I realized I said yes too quickly. I have to say no. Right. All right. So here's what they can be doing. How they can practice growth in this area is that they can journal your boundaries before saying them out aloud, which I've said to everybody. Okay. Create scripts to practice ahead of time. All right. So something like, clarity is not conflict. Understanding that you realize saying these affirmations. Clarity is not conflict. All right. I'm allowed to protect my peace without apologizing for it. That's what I'm saying to you. So you're allowed to say no, and you're allowed to decline, and you're allowed to say this isn't for me, and you don't have to apologize for it. They should accept it because that's your boundary. Okay. But yes, journaling your boundaries before saying them. So practicing in a journal, and you can create scripts. Basically, what the script is you kind of like, it's like acting, writing out the lines of what you wanted to say, and then practicing what you'd say in response to those lines. So if somebody asks you, "Can I borrow £500 this week?" You practice what you would say to them in response to the £500. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Yeah. Okay. And again, practice tip is to write a list of 3 non-negotiables: rest, honesty, and time to think, and rehearse how to express them calmly, which is the main thing. It's being able to express it in a more calm manner that will help you as well going forward. Okay. All right. So again, learn to set boundaries with calm, not crisis. What do I do? What do I need right now? Okay. How can I express it clearly? So having time just to think to yourself, when you're alone, jot this down in your diary. What do I need right now? How can I express it clearly? And when you start practicing your lines, as you're journaling these things, you'll start to learn. It becomes muscle memory. You'll instantly start telling people what it is. Okay, so start with small boundaries and then build self-trust. All right. So as you start honoring the small boundaries, having it with friends, doing it with family first, maybe, saying, actually, I don't want to do that. Okay. All right. When you start doing that, trust me, you will start realizing that you'll honor your bigger boundaries. Start small. Start small. Okay. Just there may be something this week you don't want to go, say no. Okay, you're right. FAs do fear punishment or consequences from having boundaries too. Yes, that's very true, high vibe. The fearful avoidance do fear that aspect. And I want to be very, very clear. When you set your boundaries, there are going to be people that will punish you. And that's going to be your marker to know that's not the right relationship. Simple as, right? The moment that you say no and they want to punish you, you should start looking at the relationship as it actually is. It's manipulation. And do they really care about you if they're going to be manipulating you like this? So it's actually important that you set boundaries. It is very attractive to set boundaries. Okay. So I want you to understand, when you don't set boundaries, you're actually looking unattractive. And number 2, you're looking like an easy picking. Number 3, people that set boundaries can now know who actually loves them and who does not love them. Right now, if you don't set boundaries, it looks like everybody loves you. They don't. They don't, because on the moment that you're able to express what your actual needs are, you'll find out who can actually supply them and who doesn't want to supply them. Okay. All right. So going back to our table once more again, our last little slide here. Second to last slide here. Let me just put this down. I want to make sure I've done this properly. We're on our last legs. I love this. Last slide. Okay. Second to last slide. So again, the secure people have healthy, balanced boundaries. Anxious people have too soft or non-existent. Avoidance are very rigid. Fearful avoidance are inconsistent. Okay. Some of the common behaviors is that secure people respect own and others' limits with ease. Anxious people over accommodate out of a fear of rejection. Avoidance use boundaries as emotional escape. Okay. Fearful avoidance push and pull, reactive boundary chaos. Growth focus, reinforce and model boundaries with kindness. Okay. Anxious people learn to say no without guilt, prioritize emotional safety. Avoidance, practice emotional openness and communicate clearly. Fearful avoidance, build emotional regulation and set proactive boundaries. Okay. All right. Now, as we're reaching the last little bits, the last slide, I want to say key signs you're healing in your attachment style. Okay. You can say no without apologizing. When you're in that space where you can say no, and it's not like, I'm so sorry, my bad, I apologize, yeah, da, 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 da. If you're in that space where you have to keep saying that, we're still not enough work done yet. We're getting there, but we're not done yet. You get what I'm saying to you? Yeah. You can hear no without feeling rejected. So when someone says no, you're not now making it out, oh, you don't love me, you don't care about me. If it was me, I would do it. When you're not in that space where you're like taking no as a rejection, but you realize they're allowed to say no, they're okay to say no. We're in a good space. Okay. When you set boundaries from a place of self-respect, not fear or not even anger, because sometimes we set a boundary out of anger. We're so frustrated. But actually, really and truly, you should set a boundary from early. Set that boundary of self-respect from early so everybody knows what they can and can't do. You know what I'm saying to you? What they can and can't do. All right? You no longer chase or run. You can stay present, regulate. Okay? You're not running. You're not chasing. You're present and you're able to regulate your emotions. You're able to express yourself. Okay? All right? So a quick summary again. If you're a particular attachment style, it's important to make sure that in terms of healing wise or working on that attachment style with boundaries, it's really about practicing it. So journaling it down, writing down, your responses, and really working to bring a clarity to it. We have a thing called hard conversations. You guys know my thing, CBEC, okay, which is complement, behavior, emotion, explanation, change. CBEC, how to have a hard conversation. Compliment them. Let them know what their behavior is, and then let them know how the behavior impacted you emotionally. And when you feel that way emotionally, how do you behave? That's the explanation. And then you say what you want to see change in future. Okay. Now, in that change, you can negotiate. They can negotiate. So it doesn't always mean that when you say it, they're going to agree to it. There can be negotiations. Okay. Now, I really hope this has been helpful for you guys and ladies who've been watching in terms of attachment styles. We're going to be back next week talking more about attachment styles and boundaries. We're going to go deeper. Okay. And then after that, we'll talk about attachment styles and relationship with God in the third week as well. Okay. So this is week 1. So I appreciate you guys. Listen, stay locked, stay loaded. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this particular session. We're going to be back on later on TikTok at 10:15. We'll be talking about attachment styles, breaking it all the way down again with boundaries over there as well. So if you are somebody who's going through things right now where you're feeling like you want to grow, you want to heal, you want to transform, okay, reach out to me. There's a link down below in the description box. Sign up to my coaching. We're doing 5 coaching sessions at £125 discount. That because I want to see you win. You know what I'm saying to you? So we are doing 5 sessions for the price of literally almost 7 sessions, right? And I'm doing that because I want to be able to help you as much as possible. We're trying to work through your attachment styles. We're going to work through developing boundaries. Make sure you develop a voice. Make sure you're able to recognize emotions. That's a big thing too. Okay, so if you're looking for healing and you're looking to change and you're looking for growth and transformation this year, you've told yourself in 2025 it's going to be different. This is going to be the year to reach out to me. I've got a link in my bio. If you're on Instagram, there's a link down below in the description box. On YouTube, I want to see you win. Reach out to me. I will coach you through it. We will get through it together. We will win on the other side. Okay. Shout out to those who already started coaching with me this year already. It's appreciated. All right. So I appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon for another video. Much love. What?